This is the Sports Hit List. By the fans, for the fans.
Back here on the Sports Hit List, Carl Kalanj, by the fans and for the fans. The MVP talk in the NFL is really hot and it's steaming. It seems to be a two-man race between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. But I've also seen people toss in Saquon in that race as well. Guys, that's been the talk of the NFL. We could see a co-MVP. We've seen it before. We could see it again. Rick, what's your thoughts here with the MVP race? Who you got and why? Or should it just be both of them?
So I might shake the table here a little bit, man.
You're used to doing this. You love shaking. You've been shaking tables since Mount Rushmore, so we know what you about.
So I mean, we got the obvious two front runners, right? You mentioned we got Josh Allen, we got Lamar Jackson. Obviously, we have Saquon, who's had an amazing season too. For me, the MVP of the league this year, I gotta say, is Joe Burrow, man. And I'm looking at a situation where I think every year when we have this conversation, the key word, the key letter in MVP is V. What does that value mean? How do we define value? Most valuable player. The easiest way is what? Wins, right? We always talk about, is wins a quarterback stat or not? This year, we are finding out that wins are not a quarterback stat. Well, maybe wins can be a quarterback stat. Let's say losses necessarily are not a quarterback stat. Because when we watch the Cincinnati Bengals play, we know without a shadow of a doubt, every game they've lost has not been because of Joe Burrow. Every game they won has been because of him in that offense, right? He's leading in just about every single passing category, if I'm not mistaken. The only reason we're not hearing his name as much is because of the record, and I get that. But to a certain extent, when you start talking about value, right? I've seen games where the Bills have won and Josh Allen has not looked good. I've seen games where the Ravens have won and Lamar Jackson has not looked good. Saquon has been super consistent the entire year. Unfortunately, we already know the NFL has a bias when it comes to the MVP. And unless you're a skilled player that really goes above and beyond and maybe breaks a rushing record or something like that, you're probably not going to get the consideration that you deserve compared to the quarterbacks, right? So in a perfect world, if Saquon plays and gets that record, I think he should technically be the MVP in my opinion. But if we're looking at all the quarterbacks, I would say Burrow's my guy because every single game that team won is because of him in that offense. So when I'm placing value, I think that's the most valuable guy. And now, again, we know the record is going to be the biggest thing. We're coming down to this last week. They still have an opportunity to sneak into the playoffs. Obviously, as a Dolphins fan, I do not want to see that happen because that would obviously mean that we would have lost and forfeited our opportunity to get into the playoffs. But if it comes down to that and Joe Burrow is able to sneak into the playoffs, his name is going to start rising to that top of that MVP discussion like a meteor. Regardless of the record, if we look at the value he brings to his team, it's hard to say that he is any less valuable than Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson.
So in the hit list streets now, I guess it's safe to say we're saying there are four MVP candidates, and the nominees are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Saquon Barkley. Travis, you co-signing that or no?
That was all cute and everything, Rick. You my guy, but ain't no way in hell, Gerbo. And listen, when I tell you, I love me some Joey B, man. I love me some Joey B, but he ain't about to win this MVP. Even though you made some point, like if they get into the playoffs,
compelling arguments,
right? It's compelling, but it ain't gonna happen. In my opinion, it's a two-man race with Saquon as a dark horse. It's Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and shout out to Greg and the guys at Smoking Mirrors. 2 weeks ago, I didn't think Lamar had a shot at the MVP simply off his record. And Rick, like Rick mentioned, the value thing, I think that's the value that V, I think gets lost. And
what did Greg say on Smoke Mirrors? They had Lamar's back.
No, he mentioned it more in the group chat that that Lamar really had a shot at this. And 2 weeks ago, I didn't really think so. But after his performances the last 2 weeks, I was like, ooh, he's coming. The issue with Lamar is the record. I think he has to win his division, I think, to really have a shot at it. Because if not, you're looking at a wild card. And I just don't think. And this is the part that Greg fights back about. Maybe you being an NBA guy, you let me know what you think. I think a lot of the voters are going to have that Joker mentality where we don't want to give him a third one without seeing some type of playoff success. Because
No,
what?
yeah, it's you see in the NBA it's tough because us as fans we're getting Joker fatigue right now, and we think
Mhm,
he's leading for it, and we're kind of just like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander from the Thunder should have won it last year, and he didn't, right? And we're kind of looking at the metrics. Normally, it used to go by record, the old
mhm,
school, but now they're going by metrics because I believe Denver was probably like a fourth or fifth seed, and he won it, and
mhm,
he's won three already, and you're kind of looking like it's kind of like that Jordan factor, right? And I actually did some deep dive about it when Jordan was winning it. We kind of had Jordan fatigue because Karl Malone got two out of the Jordan era. Barkley
mhm.
got one too. So Lamar's won it twice already, right? So
Right.
you're thinking is is fatigue a reality in that sense that Lamar's won it already? We're going to give it to somebody else because we're tired of seeing Lamar at the helm, or what are the qualifications for winning? Is it record? Is it your individual statistics? Is it overall team play? And I think Rick's point about everyone has a different meaning of value, right? I always like the mindset of you take that player off the team, where's the team? That's what the MVP for me defines is where's that team without that one
Yes.
significant player you're giving the MVP? That's my definition of value. That's the value you bring. Like, what's the equation behind that? So I think the conversation comes down to what the voters are. Is it voter fatigue? Are you being biased as a voter? There's so many other mitigating factors into it.
It's a lot of these same and it's a lot of these same voters. So that's why I'm like, will they get that fatigue? And then to me, I think it is an equation. I don't think you can just pick one factor. I mean, I think it is record, your stats, what I mean, all that combined, how good is the team, you know what I mean? And that's why I'm gonna go with Josh Allen because people you got to look at what he lost. He lost his top two or top three wide receivers from last year. They only returned one player from last year at the wide receiver position. I don't care what anybody says. Offensively, from a skill position standpoint, this offense is not as good as what it was the past couple of years from a skill position standpoint. But Josh Allen, he's had some Herculean performances in prime time over the past couple of weeks, and I think that's enough to where it's still in the voters' minds. You know what I mean? It wasn't too far back where it was like, oh, we kind of forgot about that. I think this award is going to end up going to Josh Allen because they beat the Chiefs, which they sometimes do in the regular season. They're going to get that number 2 seed. I mean, I think it's going to be Josh Allen in my opinion.
Yeah, based off of the history, based off of what we know about the award, based off of how it's been handed out in the past. Yeah, if I had to pick based off of all of that, I agree that it'd be Josh. Specifically when you talk about that fatigue, right? You don't want to have to, like we talked about with Joker, same thing with Lamar. You don't want to have to give it to him again. And it's a lot easier when you have somebody like a Josh Allen who's right there that has all of these comparable stats and performances that you can say, okay, here, I can give it to him. Because with the Joker situation, like you mentioned, yeah, last year everybody wanted to go to Shea, but you didn't look at Shea and know immediately like, oh yeah, there's definitely enough there to defend not giving it to Joker. In this situation, Josh Allen has more than enough where, it can be a coin toss, right? But again, I still say, for my money, Joe Burrow is the most valuable player I've seen play all season.
Well, I have two questions. Well, Rick, let me toss it to you as far as I guess what has Joe Burrow done the other two candidates haven't that stands out to you, and you're not including record because they're 8-8. So what
Yeah.
have they what has he done that the other two haven't that stands out?
I mean, he's overcome a bum ass defense that's given up what, 30 plus points a game almost? I- You
Travis's
know?
reaction is like
I mean,
what Travis
that's the way I
it
look
looks
at it. When you
good.
watch
because
these,
because I
because like
because I
when you
can't.
watch those games, like let me ask you a question. I know, Carl, you don't watch a whole lot of, you're not always
Yeah.
watching the games, right? But have you watched a few or at least a handful of Bengals games that you can
Bengals,
remember more or less?
I have not. More so, I've watched more Ravens and Bills games, but not.
Listen, when I watch the Bengals play, there's nothing positive out there other than that offense being led by Joe Burrow. Now, people are going to say, oh, but he's got Jamar Chase. Sure, but Jamar Chase also had a handful of games where he had 30 something yards receiving, 40 something yard receiving, 50 something. So he's
Oh
not
no,
having
Jamar
the
Chase been on a tear. Trust me, on
no, he's
fantasy
been
team,
on a
no.
tear, but he has like 3 games combined where he probably got almost 600 yards. You know what I mean? in just 3 games. There are some other games where he's not completely lighting it up, right? So we can't just say, oh, it's just because he has Jamar Chase. We got T. Higgins, who's a number 2, who's having a great year. We've got a resurgent Gesicki out there balling at the tight end position. Joe Burrow makes that offense move, and through no matter what that defense does to sabotage that team, he gets right back on the field and scores again each and every single time. Again, it goes back to that point where I said, I've seen with my own eyes, I've seen the Bills and the Ravens both win games this year where their quarterbacks did not look like MVPs. If Joe Burrow does not look like an MVP, not only do the Bengals probably lose these games, they get blown out.
Mm-hmm. It's a fair point, but let me say this too.
This was
well, Travis, did you want to add to what?
Oh no, I can't disagree. Joe Burrow keeps that team from being a top 5 pick, and the problem with the Bengals is that slow start. I mean, losing to the Patriots week 1. What did they start? What was they 0-3?
I think it was 0-3, and then maybe even 1-5, 2-5, something like that.
That slow start killed them. You know what I mean? But he keeps that team from being a top 5 pick.
Thanks for watching the Sports Hit List. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. In fact, do it now.